Welcome back to the Fuse Show, everybody. I'm joined today by my guest, Austin Rosenthal. Austin is the co-founder of Lionize. He has operations and sales for Lionize, and he has the ability to conceptualize workflows and dissect market segments or market demands, resulting in the development of Lionize's simplified process. Welcome to the show, Austin.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's kick this off. I'm curious to learn more about Lionize. I obviously know quite a bit about it. You and I are working together on it, which I'm really excited about. But I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about it and what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really has been an evolution, really starting on the creator and influencer side itself. But really the concept of Lionize is to develop a really streamlined marketplace for brands to be able to work with influencers really at scale. We were first introduced into the industry, I would say about 8 or 9 years ago, really as influencers and creators ourselves. And then as we started kind of peeling back all of the layers of, what account managers, marketers, advertisers, all the struggles that they were going through in order to execute and facilitate a program, we knew that there was some automation that could have been developed to really streamline those processes for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give us a use case example, one of your favorite clients that you can mention?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this one client, Taste Republic. So they're in the food and beverage market. And the idea was, during this COVID era, how can we push foot traffic to one of their store launches? And it was a Sam's Club, I believe, out in the Midwest. And the idea was, how can we identify influencers in this specific geographical location, get them into the Sam's Club, purchase the gluten-free pasta that they just launched there, bring it home with them, develop or create some custom dish using it, and kind of record their experience all throughout that buyer's journey. So it was a really successful program and a pretty creative way to drive foot traffic on top of what you'd traditionally think as influencer marketing.
I get to see the Sam's Club employees being like, what is the deal with
what's going
on? Pasta?
Yeah, to be honest, we kind of got some remarks from Sam's Club and, a couple of shout outs from Sam's Club
Nice.
And their CEO just being like, what the heck is going on here? Why are people coming in, buying, talking about us? So it was a pretty exciting program.
What are your thoughts? This is, on my list of questions asked, but it just comes to mind that I'm curious what your observation has been in terms of adoption to the idea of marketing spend on influencers, as far as like level of comfort for business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where we really are trying to go in a little bit of an opposite direction of what you would traditionally think of as influencer marketing, where it's a very high spend, costs a lot of money to work with, more celebrity profiles that have captured, or captivated millions, hundreds of thousands of followers. Our idea is to really kind of turn the non-influencer into an influencer. And that is a really easy way for us to drive down costs in order to, involve and partner with individuals that may not have as much, social cred per se, but also have, an incredible amount of push to the audience that they've captivated.
That's great. So are you finding that you're having to provide a fair amount of education to your clients or prospective clients on the value of this?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that's a huge piece of the puzzle, right? Is always educating and teaching, the importance and the power of influencer marketing up front and adopting what our process is. In order to ultimately set everyone up for success, that's one thing that we will never really deviate from is kind of dedicating an account specialist to every program so that we can ensure that we're setting up the program for success in terms of who we're targeting, how we're incentivizing, what we're requiring. So yes, there's a little bit of education involved, but it's a means in order to make everybody happy, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and I certainly can relate to these questions because, like, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, obviously you and I are working together, and it has been really useful to work with Lily, for example, my account manager, like get that education. Cause I told her, like, I don't know how all of this works. Like, this is new to me. Like, I get the idea of influencer marketing, but it's been nice to get that feedback and advice and like, hey, how much should I offer, in this campaign and what's it going to take to make a connection? And how does this all work? So that is quite useful for people like me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me more about the genesis of Lionize in terms of the actual idea, because I know your background is primarily in sales, right? And is it correct to say this is your first official startup?
Yeah, definitely. So really the genesis, one of the other co-founders, Chris Buetti, and I, he's more on the data science technology side. And then one of the other co-founders, Ben DeVore, who's just a longtime friend of mine, we all came together, say about 2 years after we initially were learning about all of the pain points and struggles that people were having when it came to identifying the right influencer to match your brand and communicating the program effectively and contracting and tracking, reporting, reminding, payment. There was all of these variables that went into ultimately executing a program. And me being what I consider one of the luckiest people in the world, happened to surround myself with brilliant minds to be able to automate a lot of these processes. So, over the past 2 years, this product was, there was a ton of market research and seeing tools that were out there, what we liked, what we didn't like, doing a lot of interviews with brands, account managers, influencers, how they wanted to be communicated with. And then ultimately, putting it all together into really a simplified workflow for the end user to be able to kind of facilitate and execute a program at scale.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So how was it for you personally jumping off from, a career in sales to doing this full time?
Yeah, I would say I was very fortunate in that my previous employer, his name is actually Brad Harris, and I was working for him more directly on this orthopedic startup company.
Okay.
Now I wasn't the owner, I wasn't, anything like that, but he really made me feel like it and empowered me to feel that way. And, as some startups do, we ended up kind of fizzling out there, but the way in which that he taught me to be and kind of just go ahead and attack something is what, Chris and I had been working on this concept for so much, for so long, and it really got to that turning point where we needed to just invest all of our time and effort into it in order to see it come to fruition. So once that fizzled out, I kind of just officially made the jump and said, let's go and see if there's a market for this. And, I think we happen to find ourselves positioned pretty well.
That's awesome. So how has it been? I mean, you're one of three co-founders, right?
Yes.
How has that been? I'm curious how you guys make decisions. And I know maybe this is a stupid example, but like with my teenage girls, if there's three girls together, it's like, that can be difficult sometimes in terms of, making decisions and sort of all facing the same direction.
Yeah, I mean, well, one, I love being compared to teenage girls.
I didn't mean it that way.
I know, I'm totally kidding.
Rewind.
Yeah, no. I'm totally kidding. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, we have an incredible balance between myself, Chris, and Ben. Ben is definitely, heads all things related to technology. Chris is more the strategic mind and kind of has this data background. I'm more on the business side, focusing on sales and marketing. Okay. And, we're wired in very similar ways in that we all are go-getters and we'll work until, the work is done and we'll figure out what needs to be done. But we also balance each other personality-wise, where, some are more reserved, some are other, there's other sides to everything. Sure. Really. And we make kind of this complete circle or this really dynamic team. And, when it comes to making decisions together, what's kind of crazy is actually Chris and Ben never even met each other. This was, we first started this endeavor about 2 years ago. They had been working completely remote as co-founders for a year. They met out at a restaurant and didn't even recognize each other until they were like, Chris, Ben? It was kind of this crazy thing, but we've been really doing everything digitally up until this point where we've all now kind of gravitated together and are now, establishing ourselves in New York City. But, everything's done digitally, over Skype, over Google, Hangouts, so.
That is incredible. That aspect really is incredible. So now, do I understand you correctly? You're saying you're all now in the same geographic region in the New York area?
Yes. So Ben, Chris, and I are all up in New York City at this point.
Okay.
So, we figured we've taken it as far as we can without necessarily being in the same place. And when you talk about making decisions, it's a heck of a lot easier turning around and saying, hey, we got to make this decision right now, as opposed to waiting on Slack message. So we just figured we reached that point of growth that it was important for us to be together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to circle back real quick to talk about influencer marketing in general. And I'm curious what you see as the future of that. If I understand you correctly, you're basically saying that, like, hey, there's a segment of marketers out there that can't quite afford to work with a famous influencer, but they can afford to work with what would we probably call a micro influencer or influencer?
Yeah, nano micro influencer.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you see it heading more in that direction? I mean, where do you see the industry as a whole in 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I see it going. I think that there's so much power in authentic profiles that haven't necessarily been already tied to a specific brand. I think that people have captured an audience and have an incredible amount of engagement that no brands are really tapping into quite yet. So my idea, or really all of our ideas, has been, let's go ahead and find those, diamonds in a rough kind of idea and go out and target the right fit for the program. Of course, that's what's most important. The audience that's following them has to match, the type of audience that you're trying to reach as a brand or a marketer. But what you'll see is, a lot of these smaller profiles actually have a lot of influence, and it's currently not being tapped into. And, at the end of the day, if you think about incentivizing individuals to want to participate in a program, when you're reaching out to profiles that are much larger, it's a little bit more costly because they have, a larger following, they have a little bit more credibility, whereas reaching out and working with individuals that aren't necessarily as established from a follower-based standpoint, it's a lot easier to be creative in how you maybe ship them certain products or you pay them at a little bit of a lower rate. And it's kind of what I'm finding to be a better strategy. But when you go that route and you try to do things at scale, obviously there's all of those pain points in terms of contracting, payment. So that's kind of why we think that this product fits particularly well for more of the micro influencer marketing world.
Sure, that makes sense. Speaking of pain points, at this stage in your growth, what is your most significant pain point at Lionize?
Yeah, I mean, we just officially launched the go-to-market version of the platform. And I think it's, getting the word out there that we have really not necessarily revolutionized. I think that's kind of a cheesy way of putting anything, but, that we're really taking a different approach to what is a relatively new industry, but it is established and we know people are going in that direction, and really just cornering the market as, hey, Lionize is very well versed in this, and kind of establishing ourselves as a credible source of information and obviously technology to be able to do this. So, when you initially get off the ground, it's just building trust and getting people on board and having them adopt your process, which is, what you learn and what you figure out. But I think we're getting there and we're doing a pretty good job so far.
That's awesome. So you're about 2 years in, right? Since you left your full-time job? So I'm curious what your takeaways have been so far from a startup founder perspective, what you've learned in the last 2 years.
Well, no day is the same. You think you might have it planned out, but you everything kind of happens and happens quickly. There's a lot of reaction involved in doing this. You never really know what is right around the corner until you get to the corner. Yeah. But, I think the biggest thing is also knowing what you don't know, right? And being open to learning from others. That's one thing that I think our team has done really well, is we've surrounded ourselves with very educated people, advisors, investors, people that, have done this time and time again. And we rely heavily on those individuals to help us push us in the right direction. And I think, when you initially start something, you think that you know everything about this industry, right? Like you feel like you should and you have to in order for it to work. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to rely and tap on a network and trust people to be able to push you in the right direction. So, that's one big takeaway, at least for me, over the past few years.
Well, kudos to you guys for that, because it does require a degree of humility to be willing to say, I just don't know. I'm doing the best I can, but I just don't know. And I would say that's a strong marker of success among startup founders in general, is just the willingness to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is, as far as advisors, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. What are your advisors working with you on? Like, what are the key areas that they're helping you in?
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's a pretty incredible situation that we fall into, and everything from legal to marketing to sales and operation. We really come with an agenda every week saying, here's a couple of challenges or here's a couple of questions we have for you. It might be, on the tech side and in product development, or it might be in kind of, hiring and trying to find the right resources to fill the gaps that we currently have, and, positioning ourselves strategically for the direction that we want to take the company. So, every week it's kind of this coming together party to say, hey, here's what we've achieved over the past week. Now this is what we got to get done next. And it's kind of just this, wherever we have needs, they definitely have the experience to be able to kind of shed some light on it.
That's great. It may be a bit early, I don't know, but have you implemented a sort of a business operating system like EOS?
Yeah. So in terms of like a client management system, or
just kind of a structure for meetings. I don't know if you're familiar with the EOS Entrepreneur Operating System, the book Traction by Gino Wickman. That's a popular one, but there's others too, of course.
Yeah, we're starting to build really everything on top of HubSpot.
Okay.
I might act as a little bit of a HubSpot ambassador right now, but they position you really well for a SaaS platform and all of the automations that they do, everything from kind of the initial even building of the marketing site and how it goes in and operationalizes your sales funnel and enters people into specific sequences depending on where they are in, the pipeline or, the sales funnel per se. So we currently use HubSpot, and we're actually in this kind of redesign, rebranding project as we speak to really operationalize everything from marketing through sales.
Let's talk about that for a second, because you guys were until recently previously Digital Presence, and then you rebranded to Lionize, and that probably wasn't a small decision. So what led to that decision, and how's that gone?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of our best decisions, just because not that we wanted to leave the past year and a half, 2 years just behind us, but because we were really going in a different direction as a team and as a group, not in the sense of the problem that we were solving, more in that we really took an agency approach up front, which is when we were Digital Presence, to really peel back all of the layers of, what are these challenges? How do you communicate effectively? What do you need this process to really look like to manage this execution of an influencer marketing program? And it was, a much more agency approach. Now, as we started developing this Lionize product, we wanted to kind of take form as more of a software development company, not necessarily leaving our roots, because we have this, dedicated account management aspect associated with it, where you need the education, you need the resource to be able to set yourself up for success. But we really wanted a stronger word, which is Lionize, and actually the definition of Lionize is to make someone feel like a celebrity.
That works out pretty well. That's pretty cool.
It works out pretty well. And actually, all I can say is Ben's girlfriend is the one who actually came up with Lionize as the name that we wanted to move forward with. And also kind of the final piece to it is it's kind of funny when people hear, what's the company name? And I say Lionize. They actually hear, some people, like a pair of lion's eyes. And I'm like, no, but it's a really good idea and a good analogy, because we kind of headhunt and identify your team of influencers and go out and build your team of influencers for you. So it's kind of a funny play on words.
Yeah, actually that is. I didn't think of it that way, but that makes sense. I'm curious, like, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years? What do you foresee as in your future? What would you love to do?
I mean, a lot of this, I could not be happier doing what I'm doing, particularly surrounding myself with the people that I like doing what I'm doing. And I think as long as my path stays, along this route of me going out, being an entrepreneur, whether it's, we still have the Lionize operation going or whatever, potential exit or acquisition we, achieve. I always just want to kind of continue this entrepreneurial route. I also, am very family and friend oriented. And, the idea is to ultimately do something large with my brother. He's heavily invested in real estate. So would, ultimately like to kind of dip my toes in that,
That'd be cool.
in that industry as well. But, just kind of keeping this entrepreneurial mindset and just surrounding myself with people and working with people I like is really all I care about.
That's awesome. I'd love to break that down a little bit more. Like what do you find brings you joy in this on a day-to-day basis?
I think it's the problem solving. It's every day it's something different. It is, I have to go out and say, okay, what needs to, have a structure to my day, of course, and have all of these meetings, lined up. But it's really, the in-between points where there's not structure and it's, okay, well, what now? What this? What next? Go out and creating, the marketing materials and documentation, things that I never really envisioned, like the hats I never really envisioned I had to wear, and kind of filling in those gaps is what's fun. It's, figuring it all out on the fly is kind of what I enjoy.
Yeah. I'm curious, how often when you get to the end of your day, do you feel a sense of accomplishment or even peace about what you got done that day?
Yeah. I mean, I have this never-ending list of to-dos in my notes. Yeah. So, usually when I can kind of dwindle that list down to a manageable bite, I feel pretty accomplished. But, I usually like to end my night on something where I've seen a project through completion, whatever that may look like, even if it is as small as this one-page overview of the Lionize product. If I feel like I've accomplished and I've completed that, and I can shut my laptop at the end of the night saying, I finished that. That was the last thing I had to get done. I'm happy. It's when there's still open-ended questions that I'm either waiting on someone or I necessarily don't have the control to complete it, that it, going to is a little bit more uneasy, but that's all a part of the game and trying to figure it out. And
sure. How do you guys look at goals in the future? I mean, whether it's, and I don't think there's a right or wrong approach here. I have mixed feelings on this. I have a hard time setting goals for which we don't have complete control. Like on the sales side, I could say I want to do X amount of revenue in 2 years or whatever. I don't like, I prefer to, I think, break that down where it's like, well, I want to make sure we send this number of outbound emails or whatever. But like I said, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I'm curious how you guys think about, future planning.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it, especially on the software development just realm, right? Mm-hmm. It's product goals, and then there's business goals. And I like to see, especially with where we are in our growth, while you don't necessarily want to say, okay, I want to get 100 brands on the platform in year one of operating, it is something that is achievable, that I would like to, at least on the business side, be able to strive for that. And it's not something that, it might be a good goal, but it's something that we can all strive towards on both sides. Now, from a product development standpoint, it's, what features do we want to build into the platform by, X number of days, X number of months, whatever it might be. And then also from just an actual growth overall standpoint, it's, okay, what are our goals in order to meet revenues on the revenue side in order to kind of go out and then, throw fuel on the fire per se and start having some of these conversations in more of a institutional investing capacity. So there's a lot of different variables, a lot of different goals, a lot of different things that we have internally. But, I think first and foremost, it's setting achievable goals and then just kind of working as a team in every way, shape, or form to make them happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, on the product side, are you guys building internally? Is that something that you've outsourced to a team of developers, or how are you going about that?
Yeah, the entire tech stack is proprietary and built internally. It's something that, we were very strong on. We're fortunate that our CTO and co-founder, Ben DeVore, quite honestly, is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. He is a rock star when it comes to software development, big data, just building out a system that is a well-oiled machine. He thinks about things incredibly well and finds the right, resources in order to kind of build it into fruition. So, we're luckily building and investing heavily in our internal tech stack, our dev team, so that we kind of don't have to go and outsource and not necessarily lose the control that we otherwise really want to have.
Yeah, I see. Forgive me, Austin, if you mentioned this already, but how long have you known Ben and Chris, right?
Yes. So Chris and I actually met the first day of college at Wake Forest.
Okay.
He was my freshman year suite mate, so crashed a bunch of times on his couch. And that's when we really started. He actually brought to me really a lot of knowledge in influencer marketing, social media marketing, and how to kind of grow profiles more on the creator and influencer side. And Ben and I have actually been very close family friends since diapers, honestly.
Oh,
we
wow.
we never really knew that we were going to be working together in more of like a business partnership capacity. But after Chris and I really made this jump about 2 years or so ago, we knew that we needed tech help. We knew that if we wanted to be building the type of infrastructure that we needed in order to kind of show the value of this company, we needed someone like Ben. So, we were fortunate that he wanted to kind of jump on board and work with us. So
Yeah.
it's, the rest is history.
So obviously you have high trust and a lot of history with each of those guys, but they don't with each other, right? So, or didn't previously. So how has that gone in terms of them building trust with each other?
It's gone really well. I mean, they work very well together. They're they have very similar mindsets in terms of what the vision, the goal of the product is. And I think they make decisions very well and very quickly. But it's all about building the trust, right? Especially when it's, in a partnership capacity. They kind of just took it on. And I think a lot of it is that they knew that they both could trust me, which made trusting each other a little bit easier to kind of, not necessarily
trust.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like this transferable, relationship that we all then just kind of started working together quickly. So, I mean, that was kind of the way it went.
Yeah. I'm curious to know more about your thoughts on the idea of work-life balance. That's kind of overused, but it's interesting to hear founders' perspective on that, because there's perspectives all over the map. I'm just curious how you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, and I mean, I think exercise, I think hanging out with your friends, I think being with your family, I think that's the only way to have a clear mind and be able to, when you are working, work in your full capacity. Now, with me in particular, it's work-life balance is kind of hard to come by. I've actually started getting into pickleball, which is incredibly sport. It's really important. And our team, it's something that we hold dear to our team is, you have the luxury, we have the trust in you that you're going to get your work done. Do it when you need to get it done. As long as you have that kind of team dynamic and the trust in the people that you work with, you can really afford them those kinds of luxuries of saying, hey, there's no real structure behind, our work environment. It's more, get it done and we'll all be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. What's been a paradigm shift for me in my entrepreneurial journey over the last few years is, specifically when I left, full-time employment, is changing my paradigm on comparing like my effectiveness based on number of hours, but more so based on what I do. And specifically, I think about there are times when I just force myself to stop and just think. My previous office, I had a couch, and I would go sit on the couch for a few minutes, or I'll go for a drive. But it's at first glance, it seems unproductive, but I have my best thoughts and I can clear my head and kind of have that 30,000 foot perspective. And I regret that I don't do that more often because it's so useful. Because you see that.
That resonates a lot with me. I think a lot of just doing inward thinking. I think meditation is massive. Actually, my mom has introduced the idea of doing meditation. She's very into meditation every morning, and just being able to kind of do some thinking inside about what's going on, what you want to see, what goals you want to achieve. And, I also think it helps in even articulating what you want to do better.
Yeah.
And I think just kind of spending that time to take time is incredibly important. And, I find myself either, going on a bike ride or taking a 2-3 mile walk. It's just very important to not forget who you are and what you need to do in order to kind of, make sure that you're a well-oiled machine. So that is very important to me.
Yeah, man, that's great. Well, Austin, I know that you have a meeting here in a little bit. You've been incredibly gracious with your time. I know we could go much longer, but I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything that you wanted to chat on before we part ways?
No, I mean, I'm just really excited about, obviously this relationship that we're developing, and it's kind of materializing into much more, and just really appreciated that you had me on this call.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited to kind of see where things go from here.
Awesome. So we'll have the landing page with the full recording. We'll have links there. The website is lionize.ai. That's lionize.ai. Obviously, you're on LinkedIn. I think, are you on Twitter as well?
I'm not on Twitter. I am on Instagram.
Yeah, you better be.
Yeah, right. Austin D. Rose.
Awesome. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in just saying hello or also interested in Lionize?
Yeah, feel free to either reach out to me on Instagram, or also my email is austin@lionize.ai. Feel free to reach out, give me a call. Happy to share my number with anyone and just chat and see where a conversation goes. That's how magic happens.
Yeah, you're a very gracious person, and certainly I've enjoyed getting to know you offline, and I really appreciate your willingness to just spend time. I know that's hard to come by as a founder, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right back at you.
All right, man. Hope you have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Talk soon.